there. I'm Christy, your friendly internet speech language pathologist and specialist in child development and the development of language, which also includes behavior, because of course, behavior is a kind of communication. Today we're going to talk about the next sensory modality in our sensory series. And this modality is awareness of time. Now this seems a little bit odd as a sense, but if you think about it, there's a lot about the passage of time that we experience through our sensory system, but we don't all experience it in the same way. And this is one of the reasons why some of our kids have difficulty with this. We don't really know a lot about how human beings sense the passage of time, but we do know that a lot of our kids with other sensory issues have difficulty in this area, which is one of the reasons why we want to make sure to work on it with them. You can see how challenging it would be to ever be on time for anything, to know how long it's been since things happened. We all have some difficulty with this just because, as everyone knows, time goes quickly when you're having fun. It's kind of that sort of issue that our students, many of whom are on the autism spectrum or have other developmental disabilities, they have difficulty monitoring what's going on around them and what's going on inside them. Next week we'll be talking about interoception, which is very related to the passing of time because it's internal. It's a sense of what's happening inside your body. Time is not exactly happening inside your body, but there's something inside of us that measures that. We're not sure what it is, but we're going to talk about it today because it's difficult to be functional in the world if we can't be on time, if we can't sense the passing of time in some way. And we're likely to get upset. A lot of behaviors come because for a child, it feels like an hour of sitting waiting for the bus, but the adult knows that it's only been 2 minutes. Why is that? One of the main reasons is because there's a difference in how the body processes time. Another reason, of course, is because compared to a child's lifespan so far, that 2 minutes is a bigger percentage. So research is still going on this because it's a fascinating topic. But today I'm just going to give you a few ideas for helping your kids tune in to the passing of time. One of the very first ways is just to talk about it a lot. So for example, in my house, the back of the house faces east. So that's where the sun comes up. And every day in the winter, we watch the sunrise in the backyard. Every day in the summer, if it's going to be above a certain temperature, we close the blinds at night because the sun will come up and heat the house up, and we want to keep it as cool as possible. So the air conditioner doesn't have to do as much work. So if you have a similar routine in your family, talk about this. Talk about how in the morning time when we wake up, the sun is rising and it rises over there in the east, and the sun will come up and it will come in the windows. That's how we know that it's morning. The sun is coming in through those windows. And then throughout the day, we talk about how the sun goes over the house and then it sets on the west side of the house. My house, it's a little bit easier because my house, the two sides of it, the front and the back, face the east and the west. So that makes it easier to talk about sunrise and sunset. But if your house faces the other direction, you can still see the sun rising and setting. In the evening, we talk about how the sun is going down, and we try to call attention to the quality of the light, which is different. We talk about how throughout the day, maybe our energy levels rise and fall. We schedule routines throughout the day that help children chunk their time up, having a schedule of some kind if you have your kids at home or during the times when they are at home, which is the majority of their time. Have a schedule. You don't have to have it be super inflexible and rigid, but it could be a flexible schedule. During the morning time, we get ready for school and then we go to school. Then when you come home, it's afternoon and we have a little snack and then we have a little playtime, which includes a sensory diet time. And then maybe if the weather's nice, we go outside. Maybe if the weather isn't nice as well, because it's really good for kids to go outside. And then you help mom or dad cook dinner, and then we read books while dinner is simmering, and then we have dinner, and then after dinner, you kind of chunk up the time so that the child can learn to sense anyway what time it is during the day based on what they're doing. That seems kind of strange, but if I'm sitting in my cubicle at work and I'm sipping a tea, which I always do after lunch, then my body knows that lunch has happened and it's now afternoon. And there is hope because the end of the day is coming and I can relax and enjoy my family. Another thing to do is to talk about chunks of time with a visual. I brought 2 visuals with me today. I will save my favorite for last. This is called a time timer. They were kind of the first to create a timer. Am I going the wrong way? Yes. Specifically for kids with difficulties in communication and disabilities of various kinds. They introduced this and pretty much marketed to the autism support population. So families of people with autism, teachers, therapists, that kind of thing. As you can see, this is the little dial, and this one actually doesn't work anymore. I think it has a battery in it, but it's broken, which is why this one isn't my favorite anymore, even though it's a great company and they're doing wonderful things, because they're just a little bit flimsy. I'm sorry, time timer. This red part is just kind of, I can't even do it backwards, but it's just kind of a little flap of material, and it's not protected by anything. If you have this shut, it's protected, but you can't see it as well. And it benefits you because it works as a stand. I've had a problem with kids just spinning it around and around and being really rough with it. And so if you are not going to allow your child or students to be rough, then this might work just fine for you. But I wanted to call them out because they have lots of different sizes. They have a wall one that's about 1 foot by 1 foot. Actually, I could show you that because I have one right over here in my cabinet. It's right here. This is my cabinet of ugly things, which is why it's behind a door. Here is the big one, and it has bigger numbers, a bigger dial, all that sort of thing. Most of them now come with a beep that you can turn on or off. It just goes beep beep, but I have not found the noise to be loud enough on the time timer. A lot of times I use these in a classroom and I need the noise to be louder than the students. And a lot of times it's just not, unless they're doing something. My students are never doing something quiet. So the beeps are never loud enough. And if it doesn't beep, this one doesn't actually have a beep on it. It doesn't have a noise on this particular model, but these are old models. I've had these for many years, so they're not necessarily what's available right now. And hopefully they've made some upgrades in the sturdy factor. This one also does have a removable base, or you can hang it on the wall, which is kind of cool. They have little watches that are like this, but I'm not sure how well those hold up either if they're a similar style. But you need a beep that's louder than this, in my opinion. Maybe there are beeps now where you can adjust the volume. This is currently my favorite timer. So not only does it tick, which I think is great. The time timers tick, but it's very quiet. This one ticks kind of louder, which I think is kind of soothing, but also it lets a child know that a timer is on. And then when it rings, plug your ears if you're sensitive. It's pretty loud. So most of the time the teacher can hear it even if the kids can't, and then she can hold up the timer and say the timer has rung. The purpose of these timers is that this red bit tells you how much time is left in a visual way. 5 minutes doesn't mean a whole lot to people who have difficulties in this area. But this, compared to this, does mean something, because they can see that their time is ticking away. It does not tick this fast because now almost an hour has passed. They can tell that there's not very much time left when there's only this much red left. And it's really helpful for managing cleanup situations. I use it when we're taking turns. So in my classroom, we had a swing, the egg swing that goes round and round and round, and the kids would sometimes fight over it. And so what we did was we had a chart on the wall, 1, 2, 3, and we had pictures of our students. And so if Jane was in the swing, we'd put Jane under number 1. And then if Billy wanted to be in the swing, we'd put him under number 2. We'd set the timer, usually for 3 minutes, maybe even only 2 if it was really contentious, just to teach that turn-taking process. So then when the timer rang, we would take Jane off and put her back on the wall, and then we put Billy in number 1. And if Jane wanted another turn, she could take her picture and put it back under number 2. And so we would continually switch where their pictures were depending on who was swinging and who was waiting. And then we would use the timer. Of course, 3 minutes is only a very small amount of time, but it's enough to have a really good time and to not be frustrated because you didn't get to swing when you wanted to. You don't have to wait that long if it's only this long. Another area these timers can be really useful is for our kids who can't monitor time and who are constantly not getting ready and out of the house in time. Have a huge amount of difficulty with the passage of time, and therefore they will sit at the breakfast table spacing out and take a half an hour to eat their breakfast of oatmeal, even though it shouldn't take that long, and then have no time to brush their teeth and get dressed and their bag packed and all that thing, so then they're late to school. One of the ways we can deal with this is we can say, you have 15 minutes to eat breakfast. I'm going to put this on the table right by you. When you hear the ticking, look and see how much time you have left. These can also be very useful for adults who have difficulty with the same thing. I'm constantly looking at the clock because I want to know how much time do I have before my next event or before I need to leave to make it to my dentist appointment. And our kids, especially kids who are too young to understand clocks or to understand or to feel the passage of time, need that same thing. So in the morning, maybe you don't want to just time breakfast, although I urge you to time the smaller chunks rather than the big chunks. You can do the same thing with, okay, I see that you're playing cars. You have 20 minutes to do whatever you want, and then we need to get ready to go. And when your 20 minutes is up, then we set the timer for 5 minutes, and that's how long we have to put our shoes on and get in the car, because it takes a lot longer sometimes than we think it will. It does take some planning on the adult's part and some purposeful intention on the adult's part, not just with this sense, but with all of the senses. We're the ones who have to teach it. We're the ones who have to reinforce it. We're the ones that have to be creative in the ways that we teach and reinforce it. And we have to know the children we're working with. They have to actually be tuned in to what we are presenting in order for them to learn from it and soak it in. Coming up after this sensory series is finished, I will be doing a couple of videos on engagement. I don't know how many videos on engagement, but it's a very important topic when it comes to our kids learning and when it comes to our kids building reciprocal relationships. So that's very important. Please subscribe and click like. So the subscribing part is just so that you don't miss upcoming videos. If you don't know, it does not cost you anything to subscribe. The more subscribers that a YouTube artist like myself has, the more likely it is that YouTube will promote those videos to other people who maybe have similar interests. This is the reason I ask you to subscribe. Not because it does anything for me. It really doesn't. What it does is it helps other people, and we want as many people as possible to be able to learn about their kids and how best to support them. This video is very simple. Use timers and talk about time and the passage of time a lot. Don't forget also the times of years, the different months that pass, the different, I guess times of years and seasons are the same thing, but look out at nature a lot and talk about how, wow, it was just so cold with snow on the ground and now it's really warm and the ice is going away and that's spring. Winter came and went and now we have spring. If you can, introduce different art activities that encourage thinking about the seasons and pondering the passage of time as it goes by. This is one of the things that preschools and typical schools do really, really well, and I like to do those kind of activities with my nieces as well. Even though they don't have specific difficulty in this area, it's still fun to do activities that are tied to the unique times of year. It just makes it feel more festive. I hope this video gave you some good things to think about and that you can keep an eye on your child and maybe on yourself to assess whether this is an area where your home or your family or your child or yourself could use a little bit of extra support. Timers will be linked in. I hope this video gave you some good things to think about and helped you to creatively brainstorm some different ways that you can support yourself or your child or maybe your whole family in better monitoring and recognizing the passage of time. My timers will be linked in the box down below the video, so you can click and purchase them for yourself should you wish to. By the way, if you wish some kind of a different design or a different color, these are called pie timers because they are in the shape of a pie. And by the way, this particular one is very sturdy. It's metal and maybe even more metal, and it's magnetic, so you can stick it on the fridge. This one's my favorite. I do wish it were in a different color. I don't particularly like red things, but it is very noticeable, and that is probably what is important. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.